Hey everybody, thanks for joining me today. I was spending some time just recently in the scriptures, and I was reminded of something that Jesus said in John chapter 13 and verse 7. Jesus says, "What I am doing you do not understand now." Notice that, now. "But afterward you will understand." Now, the context for this is that it's the feast of the Passover. It's the night that Jesus is going to be betrayed and arrested. And he starts the evening by doing something that's very out of place for the lead guy to be doing. And that's, he starts washing the disciples' feet, which was a dirty job typically left for servants to do. I mean, guys and gals back in those days wore sandals or went barefoot. Their feet were really dirty. So it was a very humble job that Jesus was doing. And he comes to Peter, and Peter's like, "No, you're not going to wash my feet." And then Jesus makes this statement, "What I am doing you do not understand now, but afterward you will understand." He wasn't talking just about setting the example of servant leadership and humility, but also what the gospel would mean for us. That ultimately was it. But what struck me was his statement that I'm doing something right now in your life that you don't understand, but later on you will. And I don't know about you, but a lot of times it's very frustrating for us. There's things that we see Jesus doing in our life or we don't see happening in our life, and we just don't understand it. And yet if we could just kind of listen to God, he would be saying, look, there's things going on in your life now. There's circumstances going on around you. There's things that you're hoping for that haven't happened yet, but you're not understanding it right now, but you will at a later date. And I know even in my own life, there are times when I'm just like, okay, God, I'm so ready to go down this path or do this thing. And instead of what I'm wanting and even what I feel led to do, that nothing is happening. And you're like, what's going on, God? I remember living in Yosemite and that happening. And, I was just so upset and miserable because things just weren't happening. Jesus was doing something, but it wasn't necessarily what I wanted or the way I wanted. And Peggy, my wife, kept saying, gosh, don't blow the moment. You look at what God is doing. And, for me personally, if I could go back and reset the hands of time, I would have tried to be more appreciative, even now in life, where you want something that from God and you just don't see it happening, or he's doing things in your life that seem hard or difficult, or calling you into something, whether it's, healing from old wounds or stepping you up in new ministry or calling you to forgive somebody who's really hurt you. And so we just don't quite understand it. But that doesn't mean that it's not right, doesn't mean that it's not God. Because at the end of the evening, right before he is arrested, Jesus is doing this prayer for his disciples, and he's praying things like, so he's not holding out. It's not like I'm doing something now and you don't understand it, but that's too bad, too sad. No, we have to understand that when we don't understand what's going on, or when it's not moving the way we like, we have to trust in the love of God and the goodness of God. We have to put our faith and our trust in him, that even though I don't see it, or even though I don't understand what God is doing, I'll remain faithful. Because at the end of the evening, Jesus is praying that the disciples, not just those disciples back then at that Last Supper, but us, that we would have God's joy, that we would be with the Lord Jesus wherever he is. I mean, that's the hope of eternity. It's the gospel. He was saying things like, Father, I want the love that you have in me to be in them. So he was pouring out blessing and doing things, but we just don't always understand it. I don't know. I found that encouraging. There's just these times in life. Sometimes they're fewer and sometimes they're greater. When Jesus is doing something in your life and you don't quite understand what's going on, or you don't see what's happening, but still, we just hang in there. We remain faithful. We go on the grace of God, ultimately believing that the love of God the Father would be in the Son, and that love would be in you and me. So hang in there. There's things that God might be doing in these crazy days we live in that we don't understand, but he's still on the throne and he still loves you dearly. So be encouraged.